Florida Gators have a bit of movement in their cornerback and star rooms, but I'm still pretty excited for what we're about to see on the field right here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another bonus episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Welcome to the two-a-days that we're running here. Happy Wednesday or Tuesday evening. Days are just everywhere for me now with the two episodes. It's crazy. Brandon Olsen, find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. We're talking about the cornerback room today, which is one of my favorite rooms to talk about on the defensive side of the football because, well, it was where I was best at when I played. I liked safety more, but I was better at corner because we played a lot of cover three, so it was deep zones. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Florida Gators, their cornerback room, you got two returning guys that are starting. However, or two returning starters from last year. Ever Jason Marshall Jr., still the guy, still CB1. That was always the expectation that he was going to be corner one. Expected to be a fairly high draft prospect. I will say, I think the hype is getting a little up there again. I think he's very talented. I think he's great in man coverage, which is why I think he's going to look significantly better this year compared to last year. So I think that he's stepping into that next role. But again, like I say, every freaking time that we talk about projecting, we play the prove it game here. I know what I see on film. I know I'm looking at a good corner. I need him to be a little bit more consistent, but I do believe he's going to get there, especially with Corey Raymond as taking over the whole secondary. But with another year under Corey Raymond, I think Jason Marshall is going to get there. He's still the guy for Florida. You do, however, need a new cornerback too, which we'll talk about in the next segment, because Jaden Hill is moving to star. He is listed as the starter on the depth chart at star, or it's him or Jadarius Perkins. I would expect it to be Jaden Hill. I think he's the better of the two options. Jaden Hill moving to star is why I'm including star in the corner preview. Because, again, there are only two returning starters in this secondary, let alone in the corner room. And if you look at week one last year to week one this year, defensively, the only returning starters are Jason Marshall Jr. and Princely Umanmielen. That's it. Everybody else is new. Jaden Hill didn't start last year, week one, because he wasn't cleared until the Missouri game, I want to say it was. So you're looking at just a whole new defense. But in the secondary, Jason Marshall Jr., Jaden Hill are your only returning starters from the end of the season last year. That's it. And Jaden Hill, new position, which I've said this before. I think Jaden Hill can be good at star. My hesitation is I know last year he was not as agile in man coverage. I think that he was still struggling with recovering from the knee injury because, he had the knee injury and then he had a setback and then he got cleared. I think he was still dealing with that. If he's full go and that's no longer an issue, you're looking at a big year. Especially when you talk about just this defense, I think that they're going to put him in position to make these kinds of plays that are big time plays. I think you're going to see him play cover three. He's going to be that flat guy a lot. You're going to see cover four. He's going to have a lot of the field to cover, but he's going to be working that underneath zone. And I think when you look at Jaden Hill in zone coverage, it's weird. Jason Marshall in man coverage, fantastic. Jason Marshall, not as good in zone coverage. It's the eyes for Jason Marshall. It's just the eyes and knowing where you are on the field. That's all it is. Like if he can get that, when that's going to improve with experience. So if he can get that down, he's in a cook. But then you look at Jaden Hill, man coverage, big question marks, at least from me. I know what I saw on film last year, big question marks. And then you look at zone coverage and his eyes, the best on the team. Easily last season, best on the team eyes. This year, probably going to be the same. I think Jaden Hill has great eyes in zone, and I think he's got a very good feel for where he is on the field and where the nearest receivers are on the field and how he can kind of close that distance. So I think he's great at that. Jadarius Perkins, the other star, I'm not high on. I'm not going to pretend. He showed me last year, he didn't show me last year that I should be high on him. Just didn't. It made a couple big plays, but as far as consistently, nope, not for me. So Jason Marshall, corner one, very content with that. Like I have no problem with him there. Like I've said, I think that the issue with Jason Marshall is not his play. I think it's that the hype just gets out of control for Florida Gators corner one, and it's just almost impossible to live up to that unless you're Joe Hayden. And I think it's impossible to live up to that hype. And that's why people kind of sour on him. But if you look at Jason Marshall's film, he's damn good. He is. So Jason Marshall, Jaden Hill, I'm comfortable with them for the most part. Again, I think that Jaden Hill in this defense could benefit. However, we also know this defense is going to play more man than they did last year. And if Jaden Hill isn't full go, like if his knee and his change of direction hasn't improved from last year, it's going to be tough. I've talked about playing that nickel role before. We didn't call it star, but talking about playing that nickel role before. Could not do it. Couldn't. You're just built different. It's the hardest position to play on defense. So we'll see about that transition. But if there's anybody on the roster that I'm comfortable with doing it, it's Jaden Hill. We're going to take a look at the rest of this cornerback room because it's certainly going to be a youth movement and a ton of rotation here, especially with competition still going. But before we talk about that, today's bonus episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try with betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege and get on your way to being your best self. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, anything else, just dealing with being a Florida Gators fan, sometimes you need it. Therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so that you can move forward with confidence and excitement. It's also entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege to get your 10% off your first month. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's a fantastic deal. You're an idiot to not take it. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything. Spreads, player props, everything. It's ridiculous. It's awesome. I love it. I don't care about tennis. I bet on tennis. I don't care about the English Premier League. I bet on the English Premier League. It's fun. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. We're wrapping up this corner preview here. Jaden Hill, he's moving to star. That leaves corner 2 open. We know that the depth chart came out and has Devin Moore or Jalen Kimber there. The battle is going to be Devin Moore or Jalen Kimber. It was always going to be Devin Moore or Jalen Kimber. So we've got that confirmed by the Gators depth chart that came out yesterday. These guys are going to be rotating a ton in the corner room. We've talked about this with Brandon Carroll. This corner 2 battle is going to just continue for most of the season. They're going to go back and forth with each other there. So I don't know if we ever really get a definitive winner. Devin Moore has high expectations to be great in Gainesville. He has dealt with a few injuries that I don't think have diminished his value at all. But the best ability is availability, right? And if you're not available, you can't play and you can't be corner 2 consistently. Jalen Kimber, he's one that I feel like, I don't know how Gators fans really project. Let me know what you think of Jalen Kimber because I feel like I feel like I was pretty rough on him at certain points last year. I feel like I liked what he could do most of the time. Like he played all right last year with a club on his hand. He was just like, yeah, this is how I play football now. Just fist. Made a few strong plays. but I think he was good specifically in cover 3. Okay? Which is pretty important because we've talked about this before on the show. Cover 3 is likely going to be the primary defense for the Florida Gators. I get it. We're going to see press man. We're going to see all this stuff. You can play press from cover 3. You can play press from any coverage, really. So we're going to see a lot of press. We're going to see a lot of press man. Cover 3 is probably going to be the primary coverage called for the Florida Gators. If we're going based off of what Austin Armstrong has done throughout his brief career as a defensive coordinator. So what he played the most, it was cover 3 and then quarters, which if you look at what Florida did last year, just flip them. And that's what they did last year. But again, the issue with Florida last year was not the coverage calls. It was the pass rush plan was non-existent. It was, hey, we're going to rush 4, sometimes creepers, sometimes just straight up rushing the 4 that you're expecting. And then we're going to hope for the best. No, it's going to be different with Florida. You're going to see stunts. You're going to see a bunch of crap that you didn't see last year, and it's going to be really fun to look at schematically. Cover 3 is going to be the lowest played coverage. Jalen Kimber is pretty good in cover 3 last year. Bodes well that he's going to perform well this year for the Florida Gators defense. I don't necessarily have a preference for Jalen Kimber or Devin Moore, probably because I acknowledge they're both going to play a good deal. So I'm not going to harp on whoever it's going to be starting or playing more snaps. As long as they both play well, I don't give a damn. Simple as that. It is going to be interesting to see how often we see true freshmen like Jakeem Jackson, who's listed right behind Jason Marshall, Aaron Gates, who's listed, I believe, right below Jakeem Jackson, Sharif Denson, who's listed below Jaden Hill and Jadarius Perkins at star, and Dijon Johnson, who's listed below Devin Moore and Jalen Kimber. So it's going to be interesting. There's a ton of freshmen that made the 3 deep in the secondary. We'll talk about safeties tomorrow evening, but there's a ton of freshmen that made the 3 deep in the secondary. So it's going to be very interesting to watch how they line up, what they look like when they line up, and how they play and how they operate in this defense. Because I think the secondary is going to be helped by this pass rush compared to last year. The secondary was hurt by the lack of pass rush. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all work out. But I think that regardless, you should feel good. Be like, hey, there's a lot of youth playing in this secondary, which means that next year, they're going to be pretty experienced players considering that they are all going to be rotating in as true freshmen. Makes you happy, at least for next year at the very, very least. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back tomorrow. We're talking what the Florida Gators need to do to beat the Utah Utes. Okay. That's going to be exciting. And tomorrow evening, we're talking safeties. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all later.